Hello and welcome to the lesson. The subject is Advanced Financial Management. Today we continue with the topic mergers and acquisitions. In our last session we discussed the meaning of mergers, the meaning of acquisitions, the types of mergers and so on. In today's lesson we will focus our attention on the defense tactics against hostile takeover. Hostile takeover, defense tactics against hostile takeover. But first of all, what do we mean by hostile takeover? Hostile takeover candidates is essentially when one company attempts to acquire another company against the wishes of the shareholders and management. Against the wishes of the shareholders and management, where one company makes an attempt to take over another company or to acquire another company against the wishes of the shareholders and the management. That's what we refer to a hostile takeover. Understand? Against the wishes of the board of directors and the shareholders. And there are various aspects of a hostile takeover. And the core characteristic is that the target company's leadership does not want to be acquired. Where the target's leadership does not want to be acquired, then we term that as a hostile takeover, what we refer to as unwanted takeover, unwanted acquisition. Where the target does not want to be taken over by the predator. Do you understand? Bypassing management. So instead of negotiating with the company's leadership or with the company's board, the acquiring company may go directly to the target shareholders. Because ideally, the predator has to engage with the management. But the acquirer may bypass the management and go direct to the shareholders. And there are various methods of acquisition. There are various tactics that the predator may use, like the tender offer. Tender offer. There are various tactics that the predator may use, like the tender offer. The tender offer. Here, the acquiring company makes a public offer to buy shares directly from the target company's shareholders, often at a premium. At a premium. That is one characteristic of one tactic or strategy that the acquirer may use when taking another company with against the wishes of the shareholders and management, making a tender offer at a premium to the target's shareholders. That's one method. Another method could be what we call proxy rights. Proxy rights. Proxy rights. Now here the acquiring company attempts to persuade the target company shareholders to vote out the existing management and replace them with a new team that will approve the acquisition. Proxy fights. Proxy fights. Not rights, but fights. Proxy fights. You understand? This is a strategy that the predator may use in taking over another company without or against the wishes of the leadership. Proxy fights. The predator, the acquiring company, attempts to persuade the target shareholders to vote out the existing management, board of management, and replace them with a new board that will approve the acquisition and in essence, candidates in essence. A hostile takeover, in essence, a hostile takeover is a corporate power struggle. It is a corporate power struggle where the acquiring company seeks to gain control of the target company despite its resistance. The shareholders may try to resist, the management may try to resist, but the acquirer puts up a fight to take over the company despite resistance. So in our today's lesson, we want to discuss what are some of the tactics, what are the defense tactics that the targeter may employ against a hostile takeover. That's our main lesson. I've taken time to describe what a hostile takeover is. Now we move on to discuss the strategies. What are the strategies that may be at the disposal of the target company? There are various strategies, there are various tactics that the target company may use in order to defend itself against a hostile takeover. Tactics. The first one is what we call poison pill. Poison pill. Poison pill. Now, poison pill is what I may say shareholder rights plan. It is a shareholder rights plan that makes it prohibitively expensive for a hostile takeover to purchase a controlling stake. And it is a strategy that dilutes the acquirer's ownership because it grants existing shareholders the right to purchase additional shares. This strategy grants the existing shareholders to purchase additional shares. The existing shareholders are granted the right to purchase additional shares. The existing shareholders are granted the right to do what? To purchase additional shares of the company at a discounted price. At a discounted price. Where the target is facing a hostile company, the target company may grant the existing shareholders to purchase additional shares at a discounted price. And that dramatically increases the number of outstanding shares. And when the number of outstanding shares are increased, then it leads to dilution. It leads to diluting the acquirer's ownership stake. And that makes the target company unattractive. It makes the takeover significantly more costly. Why? Because the acquirer would then have to purchase many more shares to gain control. Do you understand? Purchasing additional shares at a discounted price dilutes the ownership, making it very unattractive, making it more expensive for the acquirer to control the company or to take over the company. It becomes more costly. That's what we refer to as poison pill. Strategy number 2, staggered board, is another defense tactics. The second defense tactic against hostile takeover. Staggered board, also known as classified board. Classified board, staggered board. Now, staggered board involves the dividing of the board of directors into classes. The board of directors here are divided into classes with only a fraction of directors up for election each year. It involves dividing board of directors into classes, and these classes are based on the election. This is where only a fraction, it could be a third of the board or a small number of the board, which is divided into classes with only a fraction of the directors up for election each year. With a fraction of the directors up for election each year, so that we do not have all the entire board being elected at the same time. It's staggered. So maybe 2 directors this year, another 2 directors next year, another directors the 3rd year, another fraction the 4th year, and so on. And how is it then a defense tactic against a hostile takeover? Now, where we have a staggered board, classified board, where we have the board of directors being divided into classes with a fraction of directors up for election each year, that makes it difficult for an acquirer to gain immediate control of the board. The acquirer cannot acquire the target and replace the entire board at the same time because of the contract that the board of directors have with the company, where only a fraction is up for election each year. That prevents hostile takeover through various ways. It could be through it delays control. It leads to delayed control of the acquirer. Because only a fraction of the board of directors is elected each year, it will take a hostile takeover multiple years to gain a majority of the board seats. So if the board, say, has 10 or 12 directors, for example, and 3 directors are up for election each year. So at the end of year 1, 3 face election. Then another 3 face election. Another 3 face election. Okay, 3, 3, 3. Another 3. So here currently you see it may take the hostile takeover about 4 years to replace the entire board. But where there is no staggered board, the hostile takeover can replace the entire board within a year. But where only 3 directors are up for election year 1, another 3 year 2, another 3 year 3, another 3 year 4, it may take the hostile takeover a minimum of 4 years to replace the entire board. So that leads to delayed control. It leads to delayed control because only a fraction of the board of directors is up for election. Because of that fact, it will take a wholesale acquirer multiple years to do what? To gain a majority of the board seats. And that significantly slows down the process of gaining control of the company. It slows down the process of doing what? Of gaining control of the entire company. It may also pose what we call increased difficulty. Increased difficulty. It becomes more difficult on the part of the offsite takeover, because the extended time frame makes it more difficult and more costly for a wholesale takeover to acquire the executive. And that can deter potential acquirers from even attempting a wholesale takeover. When it comes to the knowledge of the wholesale takeover that the board is staggered, that is a prevention measure, because it becomes more difficult. It may lead to delayed control, and that is a deterrent, which is a defense tactic. So that's why companies may have staggered boards, so that they can scare away hostile takeovers. It, in other words, provides time for defense. It provides time for defense. The target company buys time for defense. The extended amount of time that would take to gain control of the board gives the target company more time to enact other defensive strategies. So instead of the example I gave here, 1 year, the company will now have 4 years to come up with other defensive strategies against hostile takeover. So that is how staggered boards may act as a defense tactic against hostile takeover. Now, the third defense tactic is known as golden parachute. Golden parachute. Golden parachutes. Golden parachute is the third defense tactic against hostile takeover. Now, golden tactics are simply what we call lucrative severance packages for top executives. You understand? These are substantial compensation packages for the target company's board of directors in the event of a hostile takeover. Golden parachutes, lucrative severance packages. These are lucrative severance packages, substantial compensation packages which are included in the contracts of top level managers, in the contracts of the board of directors. And these packages are triggered when a change of control occurs. So when these top executives are hired by the target company, the contracts that the company may have with the board may include these substantial compensation packages, which are triggered when a change of control occurs, particularly during mergers or acquisitions. You understand? It happens during mergers or acquisitions, or where executives are subsequently terminated, or such happens. such events. You understand? So how is then golden parachutes defense tactics against hostile takeover, where the acquirer knows, when it comes to the knowledge of the acquirer, that the board of directors have signed a contract which includes these golden parachutes, it becomes more expensive for the acquirer to proceed with a hostile takeover because of the substantial packages, lucrative severance packages. That is a defense tactic. Golden parachutes. These are lucrative severance packages for top level managers that are triggered in the event of a takeover. And that increases the cost of the acquisition for the hostile bidder. It's a defense tactic. Number 3. Defense tactic number 4. White knight. White knight. White knight involves finding a friendly company to take over or to acquire the target company, and thereby preventing a hostile takeover. So a white knight is when the target company seeks a friendly company to acquire it. It involves finding a friendly company. Finding a friendly company to acquire the target company, and when that happens, then that in itself prevents a hostile takeover. So a white knight is a friendly company that comes to the rescue of the target company. It comes to the rescue of the target company that is facing a hostile takeover. So a white knight is a friendly company that comes to the rescue of a company that is facing hostile takeover. So when a company is threatened by a hostile takeover, that hostile takeover or that hostile company is referred to as a black knight. Black knight. This is the hostile company, the predator. The predator is the black knight. So the management may seek out a more desirable acquirer. We are referring to as a white knight. So the white knight then makes a friendly offer to acquire the target company. And that effectively prevents the hostile takeover. That is clear enough, is it not? Finding a friendly company to acquire the target company, thereby preventing a hostile takeover by a black knight. Number 5 defense tactic is known as green mail. Green mail. Green mail. Now this is when the target company repurchases its shares from the hostile takeover. Target company repurchases its shares from the hostile takeover or hostile acquirer. Now this tactic is a bit controversial, candidates. Green mail. So the target company repurchases its shares from the hostile takeover at a premium. let me make it clearer, at a premium. So here, this is what happens, candidates. The takeover takes place. After the takeover has taken place, the target company repurchases back its shares from the hostile takeover. So a potential hostile acquirer, whom we refer to as the greenmailer, the hostile acquirer here is the greenmailer. First of all, acquires the company. Okay? There is first of all share acquisition. So firstly here, the takeover takes place. The hostile acquirer, the greenmailer, acquires the shares of the predator, I mean the target. And the share acquisition is then used, the share acquisition is used as a threat. So there is threat of takeover. It is used as what? It is used as a threat. The share acquisition is used as a threat, signaling potential for hostile takeover. So to avoid the takeover, the target company repurchases its own shares from the greenmailer. So the hostile takeover acquires the shares. Then after acquiring the shares, the hostile takeover uses it as a threat to take over the company. So the targeter is threatened by this hostile acquirer. So then what happens is that the target repurchases these shares back. Now to avoid the takeover, the target company repurchases its own shares from the greenmailer. And the repurchase is done at a premium. Repurchases back its shares at a premium. You understand? Meaning that the target company pays more than the market value of its shares. At a premium means that this target company, because it has been threatened, it gives or buys back the shares at a premium, meaning that the shares are bought at a price higher than what the market can offer. And in exchange of the premium payment, the greenmailer or the hostile company agrees to abandon the takeover attempt. And that's why I say it is a controversial tactic. And most companies, most countries have put in place laws to avoid greenmail because it can be seen as extortion. This is a form of extortion. So many jurisdictions have regulations, tight regulations around this kind of tactic. That is greenmail number 5. Moving on to number 6, defense tactic against hostile takeover is what we call Pacman defense. Now, those of you who watch me videos, you have a clue of Pacman defense. Now, Pacman defense is an aggressive tactic that involves the target company attempting to acquire the hostile acquirer, where the hostile company makes an attempt to acquire a target. In response, the target company also attempts to acquire it. Now, instead of simply defending against the hostile acquirer, here the target company turns the tables and attempts to acquire the hostile company itself. And I say there is a video game known as Pac-Man, because the target company essentially tries to eat its attacker. In the Pac-Man video, the target company, it's a similarity here, the target company tries to eat its attacker. Do you understand? Straightforward defense here. When the target company is facing a threat, instead of just defending itself against using these other tactics, it also makes an attempt to acquire the hostile takeover, the hostile acquirer. That's the Pac-Man defense. Number 7, crown jewel defense. Crown jewel. Crown jewel defense is a 7th tactic that can be used against hostile takeover. Crown jewel defense involves selling off the company's most valuable assets, jewels. Selling off the company's most valuable assets. Now, if a company intends to acquire another one of the most reasons could be because of the target's valuable assets. What we refer to as here the crown jewels. And the reason for selling the most valuable assets is to make the target company less attractive to the hostile acquirer. So a company's crown jewels are its most valuable assets, or the parts of the company's business that makes it particularly attractive to potential acquirers. So it involves selling off these key assets to make the company significantly less appealing to the hostile bidder. That is a defense. Number 7. Number 8, the 8th defense is shark repellent. Shark repellent. Shark repellent. Shark repellents. Now, shark repellents is simply a broad term, or a broad term, let me call it a broad term, for various measures that a company takes to make itself less attractive to a hostile takeover. And these repellents are designed to repel unwanted takeovers. To repel. Shark repellents. They are designed to repel unwanted acquirers. And these shark repellents could be provisions that are embedded in a company's corporate charter or in a company's bylaws that make it difficult or make it expensive for an outsider party to acquire control. So they are just obstacles that are embedded within the company's laws. They're embedded within the company's laws, and the objective is to create obstacles that deter potential acquirers from gaining control or pursuing a hostile takeover. And they encompass a wide range of techniques, all right, or tactics, like supermajority voting. One, super majority voting. This may be part of the company's charter. These are provisions that require higher percentage of shareholder votes to approve a merger or to approve an acquisition, which makes it harder for a hostile takeover to gain control. You may say 90% of votes from the shareholders should approve a merger or an acquisition. We could also have what we call fair price requirements. Fair price requirements. Now, what are these fair price requirements or provisions? These are provisions that require an acquirer to pay a fair price to all the shareholders, ensuring that all shareholders receive the same value for their shares, and that candidates can deter bidders who might try to acquire a controlling stake at a lower price. There could also be restrictions as part of these repellents. And what are these restrictions? Now, these are restrictions on shareholder actions. Restrictions on the actions of the shareholders can also be part of these shark repellents. Restrictions on share actions. And they could include limitations on shareholders' ability to call a special meeting or to act by written consent, which makes it harder for a hostile bidder to mobilize shareholder support. So these are just examples of the shark repellent: superior or supermajority voting, fair price requirements, restrictions on shareholder actions, restrictions on shareholder actions. So these are 8 defense tactics that a company can use in event of a hostile takeover. Poison pill, staggered or classified board, golden parachutes. Number 3. Number 4, we have white knight. Number 5, grain mail. Number 6, Ackman defense. Number 7, crown jewel defense. Number 8, we have shark repellents. Shark repellents. So that effectively marks the end of the lesson. We've come to the end of this lesson where we've discussed the defense tactics against hostile takeover. Thank you for attending the lesson. Bye-bye.